And I traveled with Lee Kuan Yew to a few places, and I did forums for him.
What was he like? What was working with him like? What was the experience like?
Contrary to what most people think, Lee Kuan Yew prepares a lot. Yeah, he did a lot of homework. And for instance, after our travel with him, he would invite us to lunch. And over a lot of food and a lot of fruits, because I have this idea that he always eats a lot of fruits, he will ask us for our views. You know, what do you think of the trip? What will you view? What do you think of this leader? What do you think of that leader? So we have this idea that he was all-encompassing and almost dictatorial. He was very dominant, you know, but he was always asking for views. Yeah? And he did a lot of homework. His influence on me is this. When someone does something important and they think that they can wing it, I lose all respect for that person. Because if someone like Lee Kuan Yew can put in the time to do homework, to prepare, you jolly well do it, you know. So for me, I always prepare. I always do a lot of preparation, a lot of homework, because it's kind of ingrained in me, you know. When you follow him to all these trips, I think a lot of people will tell you this. His focus is always Singapore. Yeah. So you have this idea that this man lives for the well-being of Singapore, you know. Yeah. And invariably the questions, the concern will be, how does it help Singapore? How can it help Singapore? And when it does help Singapore, he'll always make time for it. I'm sure my experience is not unique. I talked to many people, and that was their experience as well. There's something very no nonsense about him, you know. Everything is just so focused on Singapore. It's just, yeah, very, very no nonsense. The only time where I saw a lighter side of him was when we were traveling in Pakistan, and we were at the Khyber Pass, and he was with Mrs. Lee. Wow, the sort of attention he gave to her, explaining to her the sights and all that, was something very tender and soft. You know, it's a part of him that I didn't always see.
His work ethic and focus. I spoke to Ambassador Chan Heng-chi in a previous interview, and she shared, I think, a similar sentiment, that when he wanted to write his autobiography, his 2-part autobiography, he solicited a lot of views, and he got feedback from multiple people and revised them. And then he didn't wing that at all. He really put in the work. And I think the second thing was that he picked up, when he was in his 80s, he learned how to use the computer because he wanted to write his autobiography, and he was relentless in picking up this skill, which I think, like what you shared earlier, it really pays to over-prepare. I think that was one of the things that I took away from reading about his life.
And I think he was kind. Yeah. I remembered we were in Benazir Bhutto's house, and the journalist was in one room. It was a private visit, so his interview with Benazir and Benazir's mother, I think, was private. So we sat in a room, and of course I was kind of I was wandering around. I was not supposed to, but I was wandering around, and 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 then, without my knowing, I walked into the room where the two of them were there, when they were talking. And he could see me. Benazir's back was to me, but he could see me walking into the room. And I tell you, I froze. Yeah. And I quickly went back, literally ran back. And I think the press secretary was James Fu, you know. And I told James Fu, I think I'm dead, you know. I think he's going to be so angry at me, you know. But nothing happened. It's not what you think, you see. I think what matters is the important things, you know. So,
other than working with him, you've media trained a lot of the politicians. What was it like training them from your perspective as someone who was in the media space? What do you have to teach them that they needed to understand about media?
Why is immediate training important? Huh? I think it's important because you need to put the person politician or a corporate honcho. In the space of media, what is media? Media is intimate. Television media in particular. You're talking to one person, not 10%, 200%. You're talking to one person. How do you then not shout but lower your voice? And things like that, yeah? And you only need to teach them once or twice. The good ones will remember, yeah? And your training can only go so far, yeah? So who are the media personalities that make it or that survive the media scene, yeah? Those are the ones like Lee Kuan Yew, or would I dare to say Trump, that become their own person in their own skin. Now, why do you think the world is fascinated with Trump? The world is fascinated with Trump because he's unpredictable. Whenever Trumps appear, you have a sense of excitement. What is he going to say next? You see, when Lee Kuan Yew appear, he will dare to speak his mind. The rallies that Lee Kuan Yew did not have the teleprompter. The teleprompter was introduced in Goh Chok Tong's time. So Lee Kuan Yew spoke off the cuff for hours, and which you can only survive when you have that understanding of what you want to say. Same with Trump, you see. The ability to surprise, the confidence that you have, very few people do. Yeah. So you can only train someone to a certain point, beyond which the person needs to walk into the limelight alone. And a lot of times you can't teach a good media person, because a good media person, by its definition, is unique. It will not succumb to any rule or regulation. Yeah. So Lee Kuan Yew does not. You see, so Lee Kuan Yew became his own man. Same with Trump. So you look at someone like Kamala Harris. To this day, I'm sure she says that she was going to give one soon, but to this day she has not given an interview. She has not appeared without teleprompter because she's afraid. Trump can appear and just talk. You see, we do have in our life and time many over-rehearsed politicians. Very few times do we have politicians that have balls of steel that will talk off the cuff, you see. And those are real politicians. Yeah. So do I consider Lawrence Wong a real politician? We'll see. But he did a very good rally, but it was teleprompted. At some point, we need to see whether he will perform on his own. And so the verdict is still out. It's not out.
Do you see any other politicians in your time or other policymakers in your time in Singapore that maybe not 100% of what Lee Kuan Yew had, but in a sense of the conviction that you talk about, in a sense of their sense of purpose, their understanding of self? Have you seen someone like that?
Oh, George Yeo. George Yeo does not need a script. You just need to tell George Yeo what to say. He will, at that point in time, say it. You will never get a speech from George Yeo that is exactly the same as a previous speech. You see? So, in many ways, George Yeo, again, is the unusual media person. Yeah. He speaks with conviction, he speaks with encyclopedic knowledge, and then the depths. In other words, he's able to analyze. See, very, very, very few people have that kind of scope and ability.
I think from me working up close with him and looking at him and learning from him, I think one of the things that I've come to appreciate about him is that he really steeps his mind in history, and not just one kind of history. He really takes a very broad view of the world, and he affords to go deep as well. And I think that's one of the things that I think more Singaporeans can emulate in our lives.